Hello, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and I'm a congenital amputee of the right hand. In this show, I will interview other amputees and allow them to tell you their incredible life stories. I'll also feature family members of amputees and others who support the amputee community, all in an effort to discuss the challenges and triumphs of those living with limb loss. So stick around and listen to inspirational stories and find out why we say, We're Not Stumped. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bolland, and today I welcome Latisha Judkins. Latisha was living her best life, including 20 years in the healthcare industry when a health scare kind of changed her life forever. And we're going to get into that story today and certainly a lot more with Latisha. But Latisha, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about you. I know we just had probably about a 15-minute conversation, so I got to know you a little bit more. But we always start the podcast with a segment I call In Your Own Words. So if you don't mind letting the listeners know a little bit more about you.
Basically, like I said, I've been doing healthcare for a while. I'm married with no kids. Been in healthcare for a little bit. 39 years old and just basically living life, just doing everything that I could possibly think of with traveling and things.
Well, that almost changed for you because you said it was, February of 2022. Something drastic happened to you. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Basically it was unexpectedly. I had pain in my thigh and I went to the ER. 8 hours later, I was told that I had a flesh-eating bacteria after they did all the tests, MRIs and things like that. They basically told me they had to start cutting, amputating. They wasn't for sure like how much they were gonna have to take, whether it be my toes, a below knee or above knee or things like that. I wouldn't know until I woke up from surgery.
And you were saying that you went in originally just thinking, hey, I'm just going to get some more medication. And they gave you tests and what started out with your toes, I think?
Yes. I thought that I was just gonna get antibiotics and go home like a, normal day. Basically they started, they amputated, started with my toes. They took all 5 toes on my right foot. And then when I woke up, that's when I got the news that they had to go a little bit further. So I became a below knee.
Oh, okay. So there was you didn't wake up missing toes. That they just went further right away after they saw what they were in for, I guess.
Um, Basically I woke up with no toes. The next day, actually on Valentine's Day, is when they did the rest of the amputation below the knee. But actually they went like on my ankle. They took that off and left it open for a couple more days. Then I had to have another surgery to take it above knee, below knee. I'm sorry, not above, but below knee. Um, they had given me so much antibiotics. I had to be on dialysis for a day when I woke up from surgery. So I had to experience dialysis. I had to shunt in my neck and things like that because my kidneys failing.
Oh my gosh. So what is going through your mind at that point? You're going in to get a new medication. Next thing you know, you're a below knee amputee of the right leg. What is your mindset going through that? Do you remember?
I remember I was a little delusional because when the doctor, informed me what was going on and what they had to do, I remember laughing at the doctor and told her she was crazy. And she was like reassuring me that life was going to be the same. I was going to still do everything I did before. And I looked at her and I laughed and I said, it's easy for you to say because you have 2 legs, you know? And then she was like, well, I work with amputees. So I see it happen every day, you know?
But at
So
that
that was
point,
a lot to take in.
at that point, you may not have believed her, I take it.
Right. Right.
I can imagine it would be a
So
lot to take in.
right. It was. And not only that, but I think the first scare was, not knowing how much they was gonna have to take at the beginning. Um, and when I woke up and realized that my toes were gone, and I was like a little relieved because I was like, oh, this is all they're gonna have to take. Okay, I can live with that. I can still wear a shoe, you know. And then, a couple minutes later, that's when she came to give me the news that we're gonna go below knee.
And I'm trying to place myself there. What was the delineation? Did they find something more after they did more tests after they took the toes? What prompted them to continue to go?
Um, the reason why they continued to go was because they wasn't for sure how far up the flesh eating bacteria was until they started cutting. So once they started cutting, it wouldn't spread per se.
And you were,
So
yeah,
that was like, how they were able to save majority of my leg.
you were saying earlier too, a lot of people, the type of flesh-eating bacteria you had is like a waterborne disease, but you hadn't been to any water.
Right. That was a very questionable thing because they kept asking me, had I been to the beach, lakes, things like that. And it's kind of weird because I hadn't been anywhere that weekend. I went to work, came home like, a normal day. Nothing different in my schedule happened that week. So I mean, I don't know if I picked it up, like I said, like at a store, um, at the office I was working at. I'm not for sure.
Just
Mhm.
one day, suddenly, unfortunately, you haven't. And you said you've been married. I think I can't remember how long you said you were married, but how was your husband through this? I mean, I'm sure he was extremely concerned.
He was, I guess, more in disbelief. Um, the doctors were actually worried more about him than me. Um, that night he didn't come in when I had my first surgery because it was so late at night because they had to do like emergency surgery. And because he was taking care of his mom at the same time. Um, I just remember the doctor when she talked to him on the phone, she was like he was very, quiet and like, discombobulated about it and things like that. So it was a journey for him more than it was for me, I guess, per se,
Is
and just adjusting and things like that.
and worrying about you, I would imagine.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
how was your prosthetic journey? Like, how long until you were able to start to get fitted, and kind of where you're at now in that journey?
Um, it took me about 2.5, 3 months to get fitted for my first prosthesis because I had to, wear a shrinker for a while and to shrink and to heal properly. I am a diabetic, so like I had an area that was, wouldn't heal. So they had to debride it, in order for it to heal. Um, and then I started getting my prosthesis made, my socket and everything. Um, and now I'm on my fourth prosthesis within 2 years because I actually lost weight. So I lost like 100 pounds in the meantime. And every 45 pounds, they have to make me a new leg.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
And how's that going for you? Oh, you were saying you're back to driving, but at first you were a little concerned about that because it is your right leg. I want everyone to know.
Right. At first, I was trying to drive with my left leg, and that was just a task of its own.
Yeah.
I even tried to take off my prosthesis, and when I did, I found that I would get like more of phantom pain
Oh,
while I
okay.
would drive. So I was like, this is not gonna work. I thought that I would have to get like adjustments and things like that, but they told me to get in the car, go to an empty parking lot and try it. And so my husband motivated me to do that. And so that's basically how I learned how to, maneuver with using my right leg. Since I don't have an ankle that moves, I use my thigh to drive. So it's a lot of exercise. I have to move my leg back and forth. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, you're able to do it. That's the important thing.
Right.
How long was it until
And
you felt comfortable getting back on the road? Was it like a week, 2 weeks?
I would say probably about a week. The first time that I drove to a whole different town that was maybe like 30 minutes away from here. So I was pretty comfortable with, driving and things like that. And when I did get back out there, I went into mobile phlebotomy and drove to like Frankfort, Kentucky, which is almost like an hour away, and
Wow.
places like that to patients' homes,
Wow.
carrying equipment. I carried a toolbox with equipment and stuff in it. Hmm.
You were talking about, I think it was the nurse that said you're going to be fine. You'll be okay. How long did it take you to actually get to where you're fine and you and are you there now? I guess is a better question. But are you starting to feel more like yourself now? Are you there now? You think?
I think I am there now, because I feel like I can do anything. I even
Nice.
feel more motivated to do things now more than before. Um, I think it took me maybe about a year and a half.
Okay.
Um, and I always actually had to have someone to push me. My husband was more my motivator of you can go do this. You just try it. If it doesn't work, then don't do it no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my fear was always falling. You're gonna have to fall to get over the fear of it. And once I did that, I felt more comfortable about it. And I think the hardest part of the journey in the beginning was telling I have a grandson that's 10 years old. At the time he was like 7, and I hadn't seen him for like a couple of days. He would come over to my house every other weekend and we would do stuff.
Yeah.
Um we didn't know how we was going to tell him.
Yeah.
And I was kind of fearful of how he was going to react towards me. So that was a really hard task, but
Sure.
after rehab, I think it was like my surgery, I was in the hospital for a week. And then my rehab, I was there for only a week. Um, and then I was like, let me just go to his house and just show him, to get him more comfortable with me without having a leg.
Yeah.
Um, and that day, that was always the hardest because he ran to the car to give me a hug. And I opened the door and he goes, "Oh, what just happened to your leg?" So, I explained to him what happened. Um, Very understanding. He took it way better than what I thought.
That's good.
But the funny thing he said was, well, "Are you going back to the hospital to get your leg?" And I was like, I wish I could. I was like, it's gone. They're gonna make me one. And he said, "Oh, okay." Um, he was my other motivator. Like even when I got my prosthesis, he was there for me. Like when I was trying to learn how to walk without assistance,
Mm-hmm.
he was trying to hold my hand. He would tell me not to fall, but he would hold my hand to
That had to have
walk.
meant a lot. That had to have meant a lot to you.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And he would say, "I can't wait till you start driving again so we can go have fun and things like that." So
Oh, that's
that was a lot of motivation.
and it sounds like he's doing great now and certainly accepted everything.
Oh yes, like now it's a norm to him.
Yeah.
So
But how is it when you go out in the public, right? You have the prosthetic on, people stare. What was that like going through that at first?
that was really hard at first because I was really like not wanting to wear shorts, things like that, because I didn't want people to stare. Like I'm like, they're gonna have different feelings towards me or something. Um, After a while, I was like, you know what? This is me now. This is what life is like. I get asked all the time if I was in the military, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Or if it's not that question, it's always, well, are you a diabetic? Did you lose your leg to diabetes and things like that? Um, it's kind of neat now because I think where I work at now, it kind of encourages people, especially other amps that come in
Yeah.
and get their blood drawn, and they know that I'm an amp. When I have on scrubs, they're like, "Oh, I would have never known." So
Yeah, that's very interesting. So at first it was a little challenging, but you're completely over that now.
Most definitely. Hmm.
What is something that, like, as you were going through your journey, and as you look back now, people are listening and at different stages of their own journey. What are some of the things that come to mind that you could maybe share with people that may help them get through their own journey that you went through?
Um, I feel like everyone has a story and life changes at a split of a second. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, what can happen in the next few minutes. But if you get a second chance at life, you take it and you move forward with it and make it even better because you're still left here for a reason.
That's great advice. That,
Hmm.
that kind of advice can help anyone, whether, like
Hmm.
us as amputees or like anyone, any walk of life there. That was fantastic. How about the
Right.
prosthetic journey itself? Was it a lot more than you thought it was going to be? I know you said you went through four so far, but through different reasons, but it, is it harder, tougher, as expected? Was it something that you knew about going in?
Um, it was something I never was aware of, even though I've worked in healthcare for so many years. I guess I didn't take in consideration like the orders, like you'll need a special order to get your prosthesis released to you, going to a different doctor, things like that. That was, a task of its own, but it was also worth it whenever you're able to walk. You're out of the wheelchair, you're taking your first couple of steps, things like that. Just motivate you even more. And it helps your back because my back was killing me sitting down all day.
Ooh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that would be
Mhm.
being able to get around's got to help. I mean, it's just being active. How important do you
Right.
feel it is to be active as an amputee?
I think it's very important. It helps your back, your stride, do as much as you can, stretching and things like that, because it makes it easier for you to walk. Because they said as an amputee, like you use, more strength and things like that to walk.
Yeah. Than just sitting around, I take it, right?
Right.
And you're back to doing everything, I believe, that you were doing before the amputation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
Hmm.
maybe even a little more, huh?
Right. I try to do the most that I can do. Um, I haven't been on the cruise, and that's like one of my things. It's funny because I remember before, like when I first started getting my prosthesis, I was worried about how far I had to walk. In the grocery store, I'm like, this is too much. This is too much. Now I run into the grocery store, grab a cart, and I walk the whole store, you know. So I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need that scooter. I'm fine. Like, I just walk around and not think about it.
That's great. I've never been on a cruise either. It's always one of the things I want to try one of these days as well. What is
Yeah.
something that maybe you didn't know about being an amputee that now that you are one, you know? What is something you've learned?
I would say, oh, good question. Basically, just learning how to walk again, I felt that was like really hard. Your balance. That was another thing for me that I had to take in consideration because,
Yeah.
before you don't think about that. You're used to being balanced and, just walking and things like that. And I was clumsy when I had two legs. So, I'm clumsy now, but I was worse with two. So,
That's interesting.
mhm.
Did you go through any did you go to any support groups at all? Amputee support groups?
Yes, I'm actually in the support group. We're moving forward. Limb loss in Louisville, Kentucky, and Jeffersonville, Indiana. Um,
Because
I go to every meeting that I can go to. They were very helpful.
is that the one with Rose Booth, if I'm not mistaken?
Mm-hmm. That's her.
Yes. Did I see you? I've been on a couple of those
Mm-hmm.
calls. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. Gosh.
I remember the meeting we had and you spoke. That's how I knew about you.
Oh, okay. Gosh.
Mhm.
Well, just so people understand why I may not, it was harder for me to see a whole group of people on the call, so that's why I didn't recognize you at first. Wow.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again
No
for,
problem.
yeah, that's why I appreciate it so much. And now it sounds like a
Mhm.
silly question that I ask you about support groups, but what did you gain from it? And what are you gaining from it?
Um, I feel like I've gained the most support ever. You know, it's easier to speak with someone who is an amp than someone who isn't an amp. You learn how to do, you know, little tricks for everything. Like I remember I bought these Uggs before surgery. They were like $200, and I'm like, oh, I hope I can still get my Uggs on because with the prosthesis, there's certain shoes you can wear.
Mhm.
Being in that group, people are like, you can still wear boots. You put on a bag on your foot shell and slide your boot on. So that's how I wear my Uggs.
Got it. Yeah, that's
So had
great.
I not joined that group, I would never know.
Yeah, and just being able, like you were saying, being able to talk to people that are different parts of their journey, but they're going through the journey. That's got to feel better, I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as you look forward to your life, what are you looking forward, other than the cruise, because we already established that, but what are you looking forward to do as you move forward in your life? What's next for you?
I want to help as many people as I can by telling them my story, being open, answering questions, whatever needs to be done, helping them on their journey because I felt like, my support group was there for me and that's what I can give back to them because I was left here for a reason.
Yeah, I like how you said that. I agree. You have a lot of life left and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
giving. You're certainly a very giving person, and just sharing your story today is going to help so many different people that are in different parts of their journey. Is there anything else you would like to say, or a question or an answer that you'd like to let people know as we close this episode?
I feel that you limit yourself, so always keep pushing yourself. Never limit yourself to do what you want to do as an amp and continue to do what you do. Because that's the only thing that's going to keep you above.
The only thing that can keep you down is yourself, sounds like you're saying.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, Latisha, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the We're Not Stumped podcast. I really appreciate it. And I know your story is going to help people, and you will continue to help people as you move forward.
Thank you.
That was the We're Not Stumped podcast, hosted by Mike Bolland. If you want to be a guest on the program, reach out to Mike at his email address, mike@mikeboland.com. This podcast is produced by One Hand Man Productions. If you are looking to start your podcast, go to onehandmanproductions.com.